Hello, engineering students. We are going to be using a program today called Westpoint Bridge Builder. So please go to your Launchpad and then scroll through and you should see an icon that looks like this one that's called Westpoint 2014. So you're looking for WPBD 2014 second edition. That's what should be pushed out to you guys. As long as it says Westpoint on it, you should be looking at the right icon. If this icon is not popping up, you can try typing it in here, WPBD, like that, or go down to your Finder, and if you go to your applications, you should be able to find it in there, like that. Either way should be fine. If you're not finding it through any of those avenues, then you're going to want to restart or log out and log back in, and you should see it get pushed out to you that way. It may just not have downloaded to your computer if you haven't restarted your computer since you've been at school, since the last time you've been at school. Okay, so there's a little design tip that will usually pop up just to help you think about what you'd want to do. And here's the program. I'm not sure why it's so small like this, but that's fine. I want you guys to go ahead and load a sample bridge design and then click OK. And then this gives you a bunch of different choices, so you can see what that different choice is going to look like down here before it actually loads. So any of these are fine. I'm going to do the continuous arch. I think that one looks pretty cool. So I'm going to click OK. And now for some reason it is down here. There we go. Okay. So you'll have a little toolbox that looks like this. And this is the joint tool. And so if you wanted to create a joint, you would make sure that this is selected, and you could make new joints wherever you want. If you have a joint that's in the wrong spot, you can just click the undo button like that. The next tool, these are the members. And so the members are those bars that are connecting between the joints. And you can see you have a little drawing tool here. And so you can draw a line. You have to draw that line connecting to another joint. You can see that it won't let you draw it unless you're hovering over one of these other joints. But once I do that, it'll create a member. Now this is, these pink lines are a sign that this is not a joint that can be made. Or excuse me, a member that can be made. So we're going to undo that. What we can do also is we can select. So here's the selection tool, and you'll see that when I do that, it actually shows you which member that is in this list over here, the member list, and it tells you about that material. And I'll get into some more details about that here in just a second. So that's the selection tool, and then we also have the erase tool. So then I can erase this member, and now it's gone. And I'm going to go ahead and undo that because I don't really want to do that right now. So those are my different little tools. Now the next thing that I want to show you guys is about the different types of materials that we're using. So one more time, I'm going to go ahead and select. Notice that I can select members, but I can't select joints. Well, I can sort of select joints. It gives me some options, but nothing really that helpful. So I can select the joint, and then it shows me which joint that is over here. So member list gives me some information. So CS, that stands for carbon steel. Up here, you can see this is where we can select different types of material. So carbon steel is one type. I could change that to be a high strength, low alloy steel instead. And you'll see, looking now at this, notice how that bar is now a darker gray color. That's to indicate that this is a different type of material than these other things. I can select that. Here we go. And I can also change it to be a quench tempered steel. as well. So that's a little bit different. Oops, it didn't select. There we go. Quench tempered. And so you can see that changes some of the information that's down here. The size has stayed the same. It's the same for all of these. This is talking about the size, like millimeters, how thick it is. And then we also have the next section is cross section. I'm going to go ahead and change that back to carbon steel. So you hear that scratching right now. That is Virgil being pissed that I locked him out of my room. And so the next thing I'm going to show you is changing the cross section. There's only two options. There's the solid bar and then there's hollow tube. But you can change something to a hollow tube and see how now it's darker on the darker outer line there, and then the middle is lighter, and that's to indicate that this is going to be a hollow tube as opposed to a bar. We also see that the name changes over here. Okay, so oops, I forgot to select it. That is something that's going to get a little obnoxious, is making those changes, making sure that you have things selected. And then the last thing that we can do is change that cross section, so you can make things thicker. So if you notice, this one is cross section is 160, 160 by 160, whereas this one on the side, see, this one is in a different category. It's 190, and if I wanted to, I could make that even thicker, or I could make it also thinner. I could, it can go all the way down to 30 by 30, which is, you can see we're getting those pink lines again. That tells me that this is not going to be stable, and it's not going to let me test it if it's not stable. So you can try something that's kind of interesting is, keep it selected, going along and changing it and seeing how thin can I make it and get it to actually be stable. So you might even try going back to 150. Okay, so we went down to 150. It's still okay. 140, and you can try making those changes and see where's the limit where it becomes too skinny. Looks like 110 is still acceptable. Oh, see, stupid selection thing. How about 90? Oh, okay, so 90 is a problem. Let's try bringing it back up to 100. Okay, so it looks like 100 is kind of the limit that it's going to allow you as skinny as you can make that. Okay, now what I can do is I can also look at member details, and so it will tell me some of the specific information about an individual member, and we'll talk some more about what these things, like what strength and member length, what that means exactly. But it can give you some specific information about each of the different members. So this one's for member 5. I can go back and switch to a different member, say member 7, and get the information about each of those things. What I want you guys to focus on today is just the cost of your bridge that you're creating. Notice up here at the very top, it gives you actually the running total of your bridge. And this will show you exactly what the production cost is in details, what each of the different bars, how much they cost, and then the connection cost is the actual joints that we're using to connect everything together, product cost, and then site cost. And there's some very specific things that we'll talk about what each of these things means. It gives you a little tutorial the first time that you go through making one, and we can talk about that on another day. But today I just want you to look at the overall price. Your goal today is to get a bridge that is less than $250,000. That's your goal, okay? Now, once we have created a bridge and modified it the way that we want, what I want you to do is to go here. This icon is the test animation. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see that this runs an animation where we have a truck that goes over the bridge. Oh, we've got a problem. So the truck can't get all the way across because this bar right here is actually buckling. This is that bar that I made really, really skinny. So this tells me that if I go back to the drawing table, so I click on the icon right next to that, this drawing board view, so then this highlights which member was the problem. So when I had those pink lines that were on here earlier, what that told me was with that member, the way that it was, as skinny as it would not support its own weight. Now we've learned that yes, it can support its own weight, but it cannot support the weight of a load crossing it, the truck in this case. So your bridge has to be under $250,000. It has to support its own weight. It also has to support the weight of at least one truck. If you get into the settings, you can actually have two trucks going across it, having it be two ways instead of just one way. So what we would have to do is change this back. I'm going to go ahead and change that back to the default setting, which was 190. And we can now go ahead and run the simulation. And let's see, and everything is okay. So you can see here when the truck goes over this bridge, notice that these bars going around along the bottom, they turn kind of reddish. And what that demonstrates is a compression stress. These bars are actually getting squished together. It's hard to see in this particular one, but you've got like right here, there was some blue. And that blue indicates tension, meaning that those beams are getting stretched. Those members is what the beams are called. They're getting stretched. Alrighty, so those are some of the basics. The last thing, oh, you can change your animation controls. You can make it go really slow or whatever you want to do. You can, change having the truck there. If you don't want to see the truck, you can take away the abutments, take away the background, all kinds of fun little things. Smoothing, it makes it just look more natural. So there's a little bit of that. The last thing that I want to show you guys is how you can create your own design. So we're going to go ahead and do File, New Design. I'm not going to save this one. And so now what I can do, this gives you some requirements, and don't really worry about this. There used to be a Westpoint Bridge Designer competition that is no longer being done, so don't worry about those requirements. Okay, so then you can just skip through. You can change things like the deck elevation, and notice that this gives you information about the site cost down here. The deeper that you go, you can see that the more expensive that is. So right here, I haven't dug down at all, and this is only $81,000. Whereas if I dig down, this goes up because that means that there has to actually be excavation done. You actually have to dig out the site. We can have standard abutments. That gives you the option of doing 1 or 2 piers. If you have arch abutments, then you cannot have a pier in between them. It also has the option to do these different cable anchorages, things like that. So, and then this is just explaining the difference between those. I'm just going to go with a simple no pier, 1 span, no cable anchorages. Next. And so we can change the different type of concrete. That also changes the price if you look at down here. Let's see, we can do 2 lanes or just 1 lane, and that does not actually affect the price. Okay, and then we can also select a template. You don't have to select a template, but I think having them is nice, at least when you're starting to get used to it. If you don't have anything, you just start with this and you have to put all of the joints on yourself. So let's just go ahead and do the Warren. and then you can give it a name if you want, if that'll select. And that's, I think, good enough, and we'll go ahead and click Finish. All right, so you'll see for starters, there are some joints on the bottom here, but you will need to add the joints, and so default, the first thing that opens up is it selects joints for you. So I'm going to go ahead and hover over those and add in my joints. Good. Now I'm going to add in my members, like that. And all of these presets, we've got carbon steel, solid bar, 190 by 190. I can go through a bunch of them and it automatically connects like that. Same thing on the bottom. So that makes things nice and easy. And then we're going to just go through and do these zigzags. Okay. And so far I've got a real expensive bridge, way over our limit. Okay, so now I have my example to start with, and my goal is to get this price down below $250,000. Alrighty, so that is your goal for today, is to create a bridge that is less than $250,000. Good luck!